Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this wire macrame herringbone bracelet. And this is what it looks like. So it's basically the herringbone technique but with wire. So if you want to learn how to make that, then stay tuned. And these are the things that you're going to need. You'll need some wire, and I'm working with some silver coloured wire. So in this case I'm using some 1mm wire, which is an 18 gauge, and then I'm using some 0.6mm wire, which is a 22 gauge. You can obviously change the size of your wires a bit depending on your preference really, but this is what I'm going to be working with today. And then you'll need whatever beads you're going to use. I'm just using some round Shambhala beads in this case. You can use anything else, and they don't even have to be round, you can use some other shapes. Just give it a try. And then you'll need a selection of some pliers. So get your things together and then let's get started. Now for this I'm going to be using my macrame board, like I would do if I was making a normal macrame bracelet with cord. But just because I'm using wire, it works in pretty much the same way. Obviously it's just a different material, you gotta be a little bit more careful with it. So the first thing you want to do is cut off a length of your 1mm wire. The length of this is really just enough for you to make the bracelet and have some excess to then be able to make the clasp. Normally what I do is, on the short length of my macrame board, the large one, I just make sure that it basically reaches across there and there's some excess on both sides. So really it's probably about 50 centimeters. You'll obviously be cutting something off, but you need to make sure you have enough to work with. So what I do is the same thing I would do with any other macrame bracelet if I was making one with cord. I just put it through one of the slits and then I fold it down at the back so the board lays on top of that end of the wire. And then I go down to the bottom, do the same thing, like so. And the wire now sits nicely and securely on there. Now the next thing you want to do is cut off some lengths of your 0.6mm wire. The amount that you cut off is really your choice. For this bracelet that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be using 4 lengths. For the bracelet I showed at the beginning, I only used 3. So obviously that's going to help give it a bit of a different look, and it all depends on what you want really. So really all it means is the space that there is in this one, I'm going to be adding in one more length of wire, so there's going to be a little bit more space in between. You could also do more if you want to, that's completely up to you. The length of these is about probably 70 to 80 centimeters. Again, it will depend on the length of your bracelet or whatever else you're making. If you're a bit in doubt, rather cut a bit longer than what you think you're going to need, because you can always use the ends for something else. So cut these lengths ready and then I'll show you how to start. So you now want to attach all of your 0.6mm wires to your base wire, which is your 1mm, your holding wire basically. So you want to take one at a time. So I've got one out, I feed one end underneath my base wire, and then I'll put the ends together just to help me find the middle of this wire, and just pull it a bit so I can tell the middle is roughly there. And I just hold that down to make sure it stays there. And then to attach this, all I want to do is make a square knot like you would do if you were working with cord. So I'll put one side over. It doesn't matter what side you start with, you'll probably have a side you start with naturally, and then the other one, put it over that one, and then come underneath both the first wire but also your holding wire in the middle, and then pull that up through the loop, and then just hold everything down while you're pulling these two tight. Now this is the only thing that can be a little bit fiddly. You are working with wires, so it has a little bit more of a mind of its own. And just pull it tight, like so. You then want to do the other half of that square knot. So what you do is start with the other side, put that wire over, your holding wire, and then take the other side, put it over that one, and then come underneath both, and then pull it up through the loop, and then pull that tight. And just do it gently when you're working with wire, just to avoid getting any kinks and bends in it and stuff. So what you do now is push that up to the top, and now you need to attach the next one. So you grab your next 0.6mm wire and do exactly the same thing. Feed one end underneath your base wire, put both your ends together just to find roughly the middle of it, and then try and hold that down and make a square knot with this. And ideally, if you can, start with the same side that you did with the first one, just to try and keep it uniform. And grab both the ends and pull them tight. Like so. Try and keep your wire as straight as possible, running your fingers over it. So that's the first half of your square knot. So you now take the wire from the opposite side, put that over to make your loop, then take the wire from the other side, put it over that one, and then feed it underneath both, and then pull it up through your loop, and then pull it tight, like so. And again, you can then push that up underneath the other one. So that's how you attach your wires. Attach the rest of them, however many you want to use, and then I'll show you what to do next. So I've now attached all my 4 wires in the same way, and what I just like to do is just basically squeeze my knots together, just because that helps them kind of knit into each other and makes them look more nice and uniform. So now what we need to do is do another set with square knots before we start adding in the beads. To do this, you basically just continue doing square knots. The only thing that makes the pattern is how you take your wires. So what you do is you want to go back to the top and grab your very top wires and then bring them down above all your other wires that are going out to the side. And then you basically just do another square knot with these. What I will say is try and start with the same side that you've done the whole time. You probably will do, it'll probably come naturally, but just that's a little note. So put that one over like you did before, take the other one, put it over that one and feed it underneath both and pull it up through the loop. Make sure your knots are nice and tight, and then pull your wires tight. Like so. And then the other side. Put that over, take the other one, over and underneath both, and then up through the loop. And then pull it tight. Like so. Now that's your top wires that you took are now on the bottom. So now you go back to the top. Now these two are your top wires. You now want to grab them, do the same thing, take them above all the others, pull them down, and then make another square knot. Pull your wires tight, Try and get your wires to lay as neat and uniform as you can. Now they are on the bottom. And again, you go back to the top, grab your two very top wires, bring them down above all the others, and then make a square knot with them. Because I have 4 lengths of wire in here, I'm going to do this 4 times to basically go through all the wires. If you had more or less, you would just do it with the amount of wires that you had. It's just so you do it with every wire once. Do the other half of the square knot. And pull it tight. And I have one left. Take the top ones again, bring them down, and make your last square knot for now. Now, as you can see, you're basically doing the same thing with your wire as you would do with cord. The only difference is wire is a little bit different to work with, in the sense that you kind of got to be a little bit more careful. Like, try and not get too many kinks and bends in it. But also, it has a bit of mind of its own, so it can be a little bit tricky to work with. But just take it slow, and it'll work out fine. Like so. You now have your first section ready. So now it's time to add in your beads. Now I'm working with these ones. And what you want to do is release your wire from the bottom of your board, or whatever else you're using. So basically it's free, so you get the end free. And all you want to do is feed on your beads to that. Just feed them all on there. If you're unsure about how many beads that you want to use, just put on a good amount, even too many, because you don't have to use them all. But also, if you haven't got enough, you can always add in later on. So I'm just going to put all these beads on. And then I'm going to reattach my base wire at the bottom, just like in the beginning. Like so. And then, because we're working with one bead at a time, I'm going to push all the other beads down to the bottom so they're out of my way, so I can have all this area to work with, and leave one bead up here. And now it's time to basically cage in this bead and continue making knots. So the way to do this is you basically continue with the same thing that you've been doing. The only difference is there's a bead in between. So all you do is go back to the top, your top 2 wires, one on each side, bring them down above all the others, just like you were doing before, and then make a square knot, again just like you did before. And again, try and remember to start with the same side that you've been doing throughout, just to keep it as uniform as you can. And pull that nice and tight, and then do the other side. You finish up that square knot, and tighten that so you have a finished square knot on here. So that's your first set of wires. So that's your first set of wires done. So now you go back to the top again, grab the top 2, one on each side, pull them down above all the others, and then make a square knot with these. Put one over, take the other one from the other side, over that one, and then down underneath both through the middle, and then up through the loop. And then pull it tight. And then finish it off the other side. Like so. And then pull it tight, nice and slowly. And that's your next set of wires. So that is your next set of wires. So again, you go back to the top, pull these two down above all the others, and then make your square knot. Still starting with the same side. Pull your wires tight. And then make the other half of the square knot. Like so. And then we're down to the last set of wires from the top, from above the bead. Bring them down just like you've been doing and make your square knot with these. And the other half. Like so. And there you basically have your first bead caged in. So now what you want to do is push your next bead up, as you now want to start caging that one in. And you just do exactly the same thing. Start from the top, bring your wires down, and make a square knot. And pull it nice and tight. And then the other half of the square knot. Like so. And the next set of wires from the top, make sure you grab the right ones, the very top ones. Bring them down. Above all the others, same thing throughout. And make your square knot. And the other half of it. And the next set from the top, bring them down, make your square knot with these, and pull it tight. And finish this one off. Make the other half of the square knot. That's the third set. And the very last one. Bring them down. Above all the others. And make your square knot. Pull your wire tight. And make the other half. Like so. So that's your next bead caged in. So you just continue like this, push up your next bead and continue starting from the top and pulling your wires down and making your square knots. So finish that up, get to about the length that you want your bracelet to be. Keep in mind that you just need to have a clasp as well, so you need to leave space for that. So I've now reached the length that I want my bracelet to be, and I've finished it off in exactly the same way that I started it, just with an extra set of square knots with each piece of wire. So now I'm left with these ends, and as you can see they're quite short because the length of them from the beginning fit quite perfectly. What you can do is always make them a bit longer if you're a bit unsure, because also when they get too short it can be a little bit tricky to work with sometimes, but rather have a bit too much. So now what I want to do is get rid of these ends, and to do that I'm going to detach a bracelet from my board, like so. So I now have it like this. And what I'm going to do, because you're probably able to tell, the way your wires lay is they kind of come out at the back. So what I like to do is basically finish them off at the back. And to do that, this is like the front side of a bracelet that I've been working with. You can obviously choose to use either side as your front or your back, it doesn't really matter. That's your choice. But as you'll notice, the way the wires lay, because of the type of weave that you've done, is all the wires are kind of coming out at the same side. So now you need to finish these off. The way that I do that is, the ones that come, 4 of them are coming out on that side and 4 on this side. In my case it's 4, might be different in your case. So this is the top one. What I'm going to do is take that and bring it over to the other side and flatten it down. And then the top one from this side, bring it over to the opposite side. And then the very next one from here, bring that over, each time trying to flatten them down. So basically just crisscrossing them over each other. Just try and still keep it neat so it blends into the weave that you've already done. Like so. So now all your wires have basically just switched place. So now to actually get rid of the ends, what you want to do is cut off, get your wire cutters and go in and cut off the excess. So you don't want too much sticking out from the middle, but you don't want to cut it right where it's bending. So you go a little bit on the other side. Just do one at a time. And because it's wire, doing this is not going to go anywhere. It's going to be nice and secure. Whereas if it was cord, you would have to do something like tie it off or glue it off or something for it to hold. So just cut them all off. So there's a bit of length but not too long. Because the ultimate goal is, you want it to obviously be finished off and look nice, but you also need to make sure that your ends of your wires aren't going to scratch on any skin or catch on any form of clothes or anything. Like so. So if you feel them now, they're kind of still sticking out, and they would do exactly that. They would catch or they would scratch on here. That's why now you want to get out some flat nose pliers. And then all you do is go over this and basically squeeze them down. Just do a little at a time. Because what's going to happen is you're going to press them down into the weave that you've already done, into all your knots, so it's going to blend in, you won't really notice it, but also the ends are actually going to sit within there, so it shouldn't then catch on anything or scratch. And then you can always go over, check with your finger, if there's still anything that seems like it's sticking out a bit, just go over it a little bit more, like so. And that's nice and flat now and comfortable. So all that's left to do now is make the clasp part. Now to do this, on one end you'll want a loop and on the other end you'll want a hook, and that's going to then form your clasp. So what I'm going to do is start with one end, decide which end you want what on, and then this is your 1mm wire that you used as the base throughout your bracelet, sticking out on each side. So what I like to do is just go a little bit above, so you have a little bit of that wire in between the end of your weave and your pliers, and just bend it a little bit. And then I like to get out something like a pen or something else that has the size that you want the loop to be, basically. It could be anything. And then I place that right on top of that bend, basically. And then I'm going to fold the wire around and then cross it over the base. And you can take it out and just adjust it. And now you have a circular loop shape. You can always make the loop a different shape if you want to. This is just one way of doing it. And then what I like to do is make a wrapped loop, because that's going to be by far the most secure. So you can keep your pen in there, or you can hold it with a flat nose plier like this or something to keep your loop in place so it doesn't move around while you do this. And then all you do is feed the tail of that 1mm wire around. Just do it slowly. Try and get the coils as close and neat as you can. Just wrap it around however many times you want to. I like to do roughly about 3. But basically fill out that little space you left at the beginning. Like so. And then you just go in and whatever excess you have, get right down there, get close, and then cut that off. And then what you'll find is you'll probably have, if you feel it, it'll be sticking out a bit. So what I like to do is just go in with my flat nose and just make sure that the end is squeezed down. So again, that's not going to catch on anything or scratch anything. Like so. And you can always adjust it a little bit if you need to. But that's basically your loop. And on the other end, you want to form the hook. So on the other end, what I like to do now is make the hook. To do this, you want to try and have this wire as straight as you can, so there's not any like kinks or bends in it, ideally. And then I get my flat nose pliers out, and then I kind of decide how far up I want to go. That's going to determine how long or how large your hook is going to be, basically. So I like to go up a few centimeters. It's maybe 4 to 5, maybe 6 at the most sometimes. And then I hold it, but I hold it sideways because I now want to bend my wire around like this, because I basically want the wire to come down back on itself and come down like this. But I want this part to be quite tight. So just maneuver it, manipulate it into shape. Do it slowly. Try and squeeze them in. They don't have to be straight side by side next to each other, because after all you have bent it, so it's going to be a bit rounded, but that's fine. Just get them to the point where you like them, like so, and still make sure everything is nice and straight. So that's the first step. You have your wire coming up, looping back on itself and coming back down. So now what I like to do is make a wrap with the tail of this as well, again to secure it in place like I did it in the other end. So I grab hold a little bit above, so I leave a space here like I did before with my pliers, and then I just start moving the tail into position to then be able to wrap around. And again, just take your time doing this. Make sure you get it as nice and tight as you can. If this bends a bit out of shape while you're doing this, while you're holding it, don't worry too much about it. You can make that straight again afterwards. Just focus on trying to get this wrap as neat as you can and secure. So just keep wrapping it. Again, to fill out that space basically. So you can switch between your flat nose and your fingers if you want to. Sometimes you can get a better grip with your flat nose pliers than you can with your hands. And just wrap it around. Nice and neat. You can always use the flat nose pliers a bit to help you, because when you're using thicker gauges of wire, it can be definitely a bit harder to manipulate than smaller gauges. That's why just take your time, like so. And again, now I want to go in with my wire cutters and then just cut off the excess. Get my flat nose pliers again and just squeeze that very end of the wire down, like so. Make sure you feel it, nothing's sticking out. And you can just now adjust this. If you need to straighten it out a bit, you can do so. And make sure everything is at the right angles. So you want this facing up to the side that you want to be the outside of your bracelet, and then with the same side as the loop. So for instance, you don't want the loop to be turning kind of one way and then the hook another way. You want it all to match so you can actually connect them. And then all you do now is, for this I like to get my round nose pliers out. You have this length and you now actually want to make the hook. So I go, it's roughly about the middle of the wire, maybe a little bit below the middle, and then I go however far in on my pliers that I want the size of the hook to be. I don't like it being too big, but you don't want to make it too small because you want it to actually be able to fit into your loop. And all you do is grab hold of that with your round nose pliers, bend your wires back, because this is going to be the inside of your bracelet. So you have something that looks like that. And then I just get my flat nose pliers again, and I like to just kink out the end. Like so. So you have a hook that looks something like this. And now all that's left to do is shape your bracelet. Just because it's wire, it will manipulate. Just do it gradually, slowly, into a round shape. So it's going to fit your wrist. And then you slot your hook into your loop, and it fits perfectly like that. And then that is ready to wear, and you can easily unhook it and hook it back again. And that's how you make this bracelet. So I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching.